Hey, this is Gerd Handel, and welcome to the Inner Light Project. This show is for anyone who's wanting to lead a happier, healthier, and enlightened life. Create more self-love, inject more joy and abundance into their daily life. Join me for inspiring interviews and spiritual topics so you can shine your inner light. Hello and welcome to the Inner Light Project. My name is Gerd Handel and today I want to share with you two people who are helping people to heal from trauma and grief. Shelley Buck never imagined her son Ryder would pass away due to a traffic accident just a few months after beating cancer. She never imagined her husband Chris, the director of Disney's Frozen, would end up creating Ryder as a cartoon character in the sequel. The pain for Shelley was unbearable, and without her lifelong best friend Kathy Curtis, she never would have made it through. Together they wrote Ryder's memoir, Leave Your Light On. Shelley and Kathy, I'm so grateful to have you both on the show, and thank you for joining us in this space today.
Oh, thank you for having us.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Oh, bless you, both of you. I just feel like this is going to be a very powerful interview today, and I'd love to just start about how you both met and what was your life, both of you, before Ryder passed away.
Well, we go way back. My family moved to the Chicago area when I was in the 7th grade, and we happened to move onto the block that Shelley's family lived on. And my dad told me on the way there, we found out there's a girl your age on our block. You'll have someone that you can hang out with. And so we moved in, and it was a little traumatic. Moving when you're young like that is it's hard. But so I waited, 3 or 4 days thinking that she might come over and welcome me. That did not happen. But I marched over to their house, and her mom took me up to Shelley's bedroom, and this is a really keen memory for me. Shelley was sitting on this low chair in her bedroom reading The Hobbit, and I had not picked up reading yet. My family didn't have a lot of books around. And so she's reading a book I've never heard of, and, but it was a picture of Shelley and all the magic that lives inside of her and has from, before I met her, but definitely at the age of 12, she was already kind of bubbling with this, magical view of life, and she told me all about the book, but we just instantly bonded, and that's a really wonderful feeling in your life to have someone like that we've been best friends all throughout life. And so when my family actually moved again right before we graduated from high school, but Shelley and I both went to college in our separate states, and then she moved to California to pursue her life of magic working for Disney. That was her dream. Wow. And I went into a line of work. I was in corporate marketing, so I was always involved in helping companies package and tell their stories in the best imaginable way to really pull people in. But then I also developed a kind of a sideline gig where I taught people to tap into their creativity when they were going through any kind of an emotional crisis or physical or whatever it might be, that not only do you need an outlet during those times, but creative, like writing or producing art or doing anything that's actually focused on that crisis will just open you up to insights and wisdom in a really great way. So I was doing both of those things, and so then when Ryder was diagnosed with cancer and everything really started with Shelley and her family, I had this background of working with people in a creative way, but also I had done a major chapter on grief in my life. And so I'm going to turn this over to Shelley, and I'll come back to that in a moment because I really want people to get to know Ryder.
Oh, sure.
Well, Ryder was my firstborn son of 3, and he came into the world this old soul. He was calm. He was introspective when he got a little older, but even as a baby, he reacted to my exuberant energy in a way that just kind of said, chill, Mom. You know, from the very beginning when he was in the crib, he would recoil at my bright good morning, you know, and so I knew I had to change for this child. He was not what I expected when I had a boy. And it was a struggle to calm myself down. But, you know, we grew up together, and I probably made the biggest changes when he was going through cancer. He was 22 when he was diagnosed, and I spent every day with him at the hospital when he was inpatient, and I learned to read him and know when he needed solitude and how to deliver the doctor's information to him because he didn't really want to hear it. So I had to lightly and gently and almost furtively get the information to him. We went through, he was wild. In his weeks off, he would be inpatient for 1 week where I knew where he was and everything was calm. And then he would be outpatient for 2 weeks. And the minute he felt well enough, he was off and running. He found his own exuberance as he grew up. And he went camping. He went up the coast to concerts. He went surfing, hiking, all of these things kind of, you know, outside the scope of the doctor's protocol. You know, I worried about rattlesnakes and sharks and just him being outside overnight because, you know, his white blood cell counts were low and he could easily get, you know, complications that would make his treatment difficult. So I learned to breathe deeply, say a little prayer as he left the house, and let him go. You know, the first doctor I talked to said, you're going to have to let him be a man and find his own way through this. And that was a tall order for me. But, yeah, that was how the treatment went.
Wow. I guess as a mother as well, like no matter how old your child is, you still want to make sure they're nurtured and they're protected and that they're safe, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We changed the diets in the household to make them, you know, cancer compliant and mostly through my own research because the doctor and his staff really didn't prescribe anything in particular. They just wanted calories in him. And, you know, he was a strapping young man. That was not a problem. It was what he was eating that was the issue. So we worked hard to keep the refrigerator stocked with really healthy foods, keep sugars at a low. And, you know, he'd come home with a bag of fast food. And, you know, but he demanded of me that I keep the menus absolutely compliant. And so, again, we were at loggerheads periodically throughout that journey.
Wow. I guess from what I'm picturing Ryder as, he was a very free spirit who he just wanted to live life and just live it to the fullest.
Absolutely. And the cancer brought that home. I mean, he had already launched into his musical career and was studying guitar and writing music and lyrics at a school in Hollywood when he was diagnosed. So he already had formed a band and they were doing gigs all over the LA area.
Wow.
So that was something else he did in between his treatments, was he kept his fan base entertained, and it was growing all the time. And I think the music had a lot to do with his healing. He needed it spiritually.
Yeah.
So that was where he dove in and really learned to express himself. He wrote songs while he was in the hospital, and studied other musicians that he really admired, and that comes into play later. He had a favorite band, and ultimately he got to meet them all.
Wow.
And speak at one of their concerts. So he made his dreams come true while he was going through this really hard time.
Wow. It sounds to me like the creativity that you had in Disney, it's like his creativity was in music. So it was like that was his way of just being free and just being present.
Right. Yeah, we encouraged our boys to follow their hearts and whatever that meant, and they all ended up being performers.
Wow.
Yeah, it was, where I had friends who were trying to discourage the arts because who can make money in the arts? Well, people can and they do, but that wasn't our focus. Our focus was for them to find their passion and follow it.
Wow. So Ryder had cancer, and then how did he pass away?
Oh, well, he was cleared of the cancer about 9 months after he started treatment, and they, pronounced him clear and said, "You're good to go. We'll see you in 6 months." And,
wow.
He continued on with, performances. And then in the middle of that summer, he went, to Bali to study music and the culture there,
Wow.
with a college group. And that was, oh my gosh, that changed him so much. It just made him more who he was becoming, more spiritual, more serene, more meditative, deeper, observant even more than he had been, compassionate. He just really, really grew through that month. And that was the month of July, and I'm giving you a timeline because he lived another few months, and his car broke down on the side of the freeway, and he was walking home in the middle of the night in a dark fog with no lights, and he was hit by 2 cars.
Wow.
That was at the end of October, so we had him for about 6 months, cancer-free.
Gosh, it does make you think that life is really short, and you should really just do what you're here to do, right? Like whatever your gift is, whatever your passion is, you should just follow it no matter what.
Right. Grab every moment. He always said, "Be in the moment, Mom. If you're washing the dishes, appreciate it." I'm like, "Yeah, I appreciate it if you wash the dishes."
Wow.
Yeah.
He definitely sounds like an old soul. I can feel it. He has an old soul vibe about him. Oh, bless him. Wow. I really do relate with what you were saying about Ryder when he had cancer. I had a cancer scare, but the cancer scare actually woke me up. I remember sat in the hospital. I was one of these people that just did everything alone. I refused to ask for help I call it my old life now. And I remember when the doctor said that we misdiagnosed you, and I just literally cried and ran out the hospital, and I heard a voice say, "It's time to heal." And I didn't know where that voice was coming from. And I didn't realize actually it was in my intuition, and it was something higher than what I knew. And from that moment, I just kind of like Ryder, I just lived my life. I did everything and anything I could think of. I left the journalism world. I went and taught young people. I spoke on stages, did anything like Daredevil, walked on fire.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, broke boards with my hands, arrows in my throat, you name it. And it really did make me, I guess, free. I think I came back to my inner child. I think sometimes we're too busy trying to grow up so quick to get a good job, good education, that we really don't allow that inner child to play every single day. And that was my biggest gift, was learning to just be free. And unfortunately, it took me to have, I ended up working hard again. I ended up like having a coach's business, but then I had kidney disease. So I actually had a kidney operation. And again, I had to learn to slow down, but also enjoy the present moment, like Ryder is saying. And I think the key of what I'm hearing is that live life the way you want it. We shouldn't follow what society thinks we need to be. We really need to just trust what our heart wants, and that there's no wrong or right way about it.
Right.
Absolutely. You know, that as you've been talking, I've been thinking about all these, you know, glimpses of Ryder that, having worked on the book with Shelley, you know, he did what a lot of people have never learned how to do, which is to put boundaries up so that they can fully live, you know, and have that kind of not just freedom to act, but freedom to express emotionally, to be who they are. And, you know, he was stubborn and he was delightful. And so that combination was, part of the light that, you know, ended up becoming the title of not only the first song he wrote, but the book that we wrote about him, because it's just really dovetailing well with your own story. I'm so moved.
Oh, wow. Gosh. Yeah. Well, I think because I'm quite close to the age of Ryder as well. I'm an late 80s baby. So I relate to a lot of what Ryder's saying. However, with me, I did have a lot of health problems growing up, and I think I kept ignoring the signs. And it wasn't until they said, like, when I was misdiagnosed, but during that process, I think that just made me realize that if I don't live my life now, when will I? And I think that's what Ryder was always doing, but what it sounds to me. He wasn't afraid no matter what. He just wanted to live life. Even if he had the worst case scenario, he's just like, I just need to live life to the fullest.
That was exactly what he was doing, and he did it every day. He inspired other people to do it. There were people that he met who were in the darkest despair. You know, they were young people, but they were facing, you know, difficulties, and he, by living who he was, showed them a way out of it. You know, he did some talking, but he wasn't a counselor, but you know, he just set an example for joy and loving life and finding the good in people. And he made some major changes in several people's lives.
Wow. He sounds like a special soul.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm curious, actually, when is his birthday?
Oh, June 30th, 1990.
Oh, so he's a Cancer sign. Oh, yeah, they're very intuitive. Cancer signs are they have this wisdom within them, and they're very intuitive in how people are feeling, and they will say things that you wouldn't really necessarily think about. So like saying to you, like, you need to be present in the moment. That sounds like, yeah. Wow.
Kathy's a Cancer too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Thank you for saying we're intuitive, because we are.
Yeah, my mom's actually the same sign as well. So like growing up with an intuitive mom who didn't realise that she had a very sensitivity, I learned a lot from her growing up. Yeah, very curious people you are.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, gosh, wow. And so I want to go back to the story. So the accident happened. So when do you actually find out, Shelley, that he passes away? Is it very soon, or is it?
Well, he was walking home, and it was about 5:30 in the morning, before the sun was up. And about 8 o'clock that morning, the police came to my door, the highway patrol, and they said, you know, your son's been in an accident. We're here to take you to the hospital. I said, how is he? And they said, we don't know. You know, we're just here to take you to the hospital. Well, they were probably the same police officers who were at the scene. I don't know. But the only other person home was my youngest son. My husband was in New York, and doing publicity on Frozen. And my middle son was away at school in Michigan. Actually, he was in Europe on a semester abroad. So my youngest son and I went to the hospital and waited a couple of hours until the surgeon came out and went through all the ways Ryder was injured, and I kept thinking, well, we've been through cancer. We'll survive this one. There's another healing journey ahead of us. And then he dropped the bomb, that Ryder hadn't made it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a really surreal, out of body experience. I was so out of my mind. I called my husband and said, now you can stay and finish your publicity. It's like,
oh my gosh,
you're out of your mind. I was being pragmatic. And I had my son there who was 16 and couldn't think about how he felt. These are his words. Because he knew he had to be the strong one for me. And, of course I fell apart. Yeah. So that was really tough. Everybody came home and we were together, of course, but, yeah.
Yeah. I think grief is it's a difficult process, and especially it's your child. You never think it's going to be that way, right? You always think it's going to be the other way around. And
right.
But I do understand with grief, it's like, I've had quite a lot of people pass away in my family, and the first biggest one was my grandma, and kind of like what you said to your husband, I kind of just carried on. Like I had like meetings, and I carried on doing the meetings even though I'd known my grandma passed away. And I think people don't realize that it's so important to grieve. Because I actually didn't grieve my grandma enough fully until after my operation, when my uncle passed away, and my grief just hit me. Like I had no choice but to just deal with it all. And I think we shouldn't feel bad for grieving. I feel like sometimes we think that we need to put on a front to make sure everybody else is okay, but really we just need to let it flow, whether it's crying, whether it's happy, whether it's sad. We should really let it flow. And I know with my own healing journey that grief is important. It's really important to just feel what you're feeling and just let whatever you're feeling come out. And I'm sure Kathy, this is where you came in to help Shelley.
Well, it wasn't immediate. She had been doing a journal online on Caring Bridge, which allowed her to communicate with all of her, really close connections that had been through the cancer and had been reading about, how that was going. And so after Ryder passed, she continued to do that. And of course, we talked on the phone. I lived a long way away from her, and so we talked by phone. But one thing I will say about Shelley is that she did not hold back her feelings, and they were deep and they were raw and they were frightening. They were frightening to me because I knew how deeply she feels everything and how close she and Ryder were. And she even told me multiple times that she really didn't want to live anymore. And
wow,
I know her to be pragmatic enough and equally stubborn as Ryder, but she wouldn't have followed through with anything. But that was how she felt, and she was very open about it. But I'm gonna backtrack a little bit into my life because there's a really important piece of it that prepared me for what was ahead with Shelley. And that is, after my several years of helping people come through, oh my gosh, cancer, AIDS, heart disease, domestic violence.
wow.
Like the range of issues that I had worked with people through these creativity programs that I offered, and they were a combination of writing and art and just basically going on the journey into that issue and learning from it and, healing emotionally and getting insights about how to move forward. So, about 5 years after I started doing that, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and 2.5 months later was gone. And my mom and I had written to one another, in regular mail. It was before email. But we just wrote letters to each other because we lived apart and we just both loved going to the mailbox and finding a letter there. It was just kind of our thing. And so, after she passed, I was like you. I had never felt the grief I felt with her loss. It was a deeper emotion than I had ever felt. Mm-hmm. And it didn't go away. And finally, I just kind of took my own medicine and I began to work through the grief by writing. But I wrote to my mom. And I imagined with all my heart and soul that she was hearing me. Mm-hmm. And it was a really, cathartic effort because there were so many things that I really didn't get to talk with my mom about as she was heading into, the final days of her life. And I just wanted so badly to share my heart with her. So I did that. And then for a long period of time, I kept feeling like I wasn't done writing. Mm-hmm. And it finally, through a series of kind of synchronistic happenings, I got the feeling she wanted to write me back. And I figured out how to get out of my own way and allow that to happen, whatever it meant, however, whatever came to me and through me, I allowed it to flow. And so I completely eliminated my grief and I forged this connection with her spirit. And none of this is anything I had a preconception about. I didn't go into it thinking that would happen, but it was profound what happened to me through that writing. And so I published a book with that particular writing story in it. And I just put it out there because I knew that I was allowing myself to see death and to see the ongoing nature of our spirit in a out of the box way. Mm. And I thought there might be other people that would be encouraged by that. So I self-published my book and I developed a writing program that really kind of followed what I had done. And I started offering it in a variety of different locations, hospitals and hospice centers, and I mean, you name it. Wherever they would have me, I went. And people were so very hungry to not only deal with their grief in that way, but they were hungry to talk about how they knew their loved one was still there, like the spiritual component of it. So this has all happened years before Ryder passed. So by the time that happened, I could not have felt more equipped to step in and help Shelley not only try to deal with the grief in her own way, to support her through that. But then when she decided to write a book, I had already written my own book. I had been writing books for other people. And so it's like, I don't know. I think God just put me on a path that prepared me to show up at Shelley's door and go, all right, here I am. Let me help. And that's what happened.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Gosh, I really understand what you're saying with the writing pen to paper. It's so powerful, and I really do understand what you're saying. I've literally just been nodding throughout everything you've been saying. Because with my grandma, I often talk to her now, and I'll ask her for her wisdom or advice. And sometimes I'll see her in like a squirrel, or I'll see her in a robin. I'll be like, "Oh, you're here today, Grandma. What's happening?" And it's so beautiful, right? It's just so beautiful to just have that connection. Because I really did struggle with my grandma because I was very close to her, and she was the only grandma that I had, to be honest. My father's mum I never really met, but talking to her, because it's very different in my background. I'm actually Indian, so when somebody passes away, you don't have a coffin; they're cremated, so you never have an experience to actually go visit them.
Right.
So it's that feeling of like, how do you talk to them if they're not physically there somewhere? So for me, I always struggled with that grief process because it's like, well, where are they now? I don't know where they are. So when I finally started to talk to my grandma was actually when my uncle passed away, and she spoke to me. And then like yourself, Kathy, I started writing, and I said, what are you trying to tell me? And she'd like tell me things as I was writing. Like, it wasn't really me writing. It was almost her. It's hard to explain. It's yeah, I really understand it. It's crazy, but it's not even crazy. It's just, it's powerful. I don't even know what the words are to put it, but it's so weird when you write.
It's really hard to talk about it and put it into words, but the big shock for me was, and this was about 14 years ago, that people were really, really hungry to share and to be in a space where this is what we were talking about. This is what we were, really focused on, helping them make that connection, because that changes you.
Yeah.
It takes the grief and it just transforms it into, it's almost like, it isn't that it's unnecessary, because I think that's a little bit harsh, but again, I fail at words, to describe it, but, Shelley had always believed in the afterlife, and she had a very open mind and a very open heart. But, the grief still has to take its path toward resolution and toward healing. And she did a lot of, and I'd love to hear her talk about this, she did a lot of really out of the box type of things, but they were what led her to the light that Ryder had shown all his life. She figured out how to find it again in the darkness of her grief tunnel. So, Shelley.
Yes. Well, it started out shortly after Ryder passed. I was in touch with a medium who had known him in life to some degree, and had even had a dream that a young man, she and her sisters were going to be mourning a young man at one sister's wedding. And it just so happened, and the letters RB came into the dream, and she had no inkling that it would be connected to Ryder Buck. But in fact, she and her sister, who was a best friend of Ryder, were at their own sister's wedding the weekend of his service. So I spoke to her a lot for about a year and a half or 2 years, and Ryder would come through, and I lived for that. I mean, it would give me, it would lift me up and give me a connection to him. And, it would last, several days, and then I would be back in the depths of my despair. He also sent messages through a friend who received them like a fax in her sleep, woke up, transcribed them, and sent them to me in the morning. And one of the songs there's a song in Leave Your Light On in the book that he sent after he'd passed. And his bandmate put music to it. It's on his last CD, but it's published in the book. And there were so many signs, and he continues to reach out, and I am so, so grateful. because that has been my lifeline. And he even said, after he passed, Mom, write my story.
Oh.
And that was the thing that took me over the brink. I had been encouraged by people who were reading my journal to write a book. And I said, oh, yeah, too much, too much, too overwhelming. Maybe one day. And then Ryder came through and I went, okay, now's the time. I can't deny him anything. And, Kathy and I started out.
Wow.
And that's a funny story too, if you want to hear it. So after everything I've just told you about my background and what I've done with my life and all that, she's encouraged, by a contact of hers in LA to turn the book from the journal, the sort of linear, here's what happened and here's what happened and here's, all that, into more of a narrative. And she called me one day and said, oh my God, he thinks that I need to get a ghostwriter because he thinks it needs to be a narrative, more of a story about Ryder. And I don't even know where to begin. What am I going to do? Am I going to have to go to New York City to find a writer? Blah, 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 blah. And I was sitting on the other end of the phone thinking, well, surely she thought of me. And if she didn't want to work with me, I don't want to bring it up. But I finally said, well, what about me? And she screamed into the phone and was like, oh my God, I'm staring right at it and I can't see it. So, we were off and running like within a day. I think it was very quick. We started to work on the phone. Every single day for 2 years, we worked by phone. We had a shared document online where we could both do editing and writing, and it was a profound journey, and I think an extended part of her healing too.
Oh, absolutely. It was so cathartic and so healing. I mean, to tell the stories again, to put it together into a story that people could take and digest, and it wasn't as dry as a journal, but it had all the same heart and light that Ryder lived by. And Kathy brought that out, and we just it was a match made in heaven.
I could feel his energy in the book. There were moments where I had to pause, because I could feel his bright light. I don't know how to explain it, but there was this energy around the book that I've never felt before with other books. And I felt it really strongly. And I was just going to say, actually, to both of you, I could feel even now, I can feel Ryder's energy, and I can see, I can feel it, he's next to Shelley as well. He has I don't know how to put I'm a bit gobsmacked right now.
Well, this is exciting, really, to hear you say that, because he is a profound presence, and he was there. He was there through the writing of the book. He's still there. As Shelley said, we both, she's with him, I'm sure, more than I am, but I feel him around profoundly at times. And he's, everything from encouraging and loving and compassionate to just ornery and, I just love his personality. I love when he shows up.
I feel like he sat here with us all and just is leading everyone, come on.
Yeah.
Of course, because he loves when he's the topic of conversation. Who would?
Oh, bless him. I would love to know more about the book. So could you let the listeners know, so you created the book, but what's it fully about for somebody who hasn't read it right now?
Well, it's about Ryder's light and what he brought to the world. It starts with his youth and carries on through his growing up into his cancer journey. And then, the turning point in the book is when he passed. And then we go on into his afterlife and my relationship with him, both during his life and after he passed. But it really, like you said, it carries his spirit and that lightness of being that he brought to the world and to all the people he knew. It's called Leave Your Light On, the first song he ever wrote. And I think he knew the path he was on when he picked up his guitar.
Wow. Gosh, wow. And he started really young, didn't he, with playing the guitar?
Actually, he started in the middle of high school. He started playing, guitar video games, and then we finally got him a guitar, and he just dove into it. He took a couple of lessons, for a few months, and then learned to teach himself and print out the chords and so on, and then he finally started studying it at Musicians Institute in Hollywood. And that was when he just took off. He was not afraid of anything. And he gathered people to him because he was a magnet in life, and so he put together a band. He's scheduled probably bi-weekly jams at the beach, where they'd have a big bonfire and everybody would come with an instrument and they'd all just play and sing his music. And I've got some video of that, which is really a treasure to me. Wow. Yeah, he just really took off with it, but it wasn't until late in high school.
Nice. Wow.
In fact, he said to me once when he was getting ready to go away to college, Mom, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. And I said, oh, honey, go look in the mirror. It's strapped to your back. Because he never went anywhere without his guitar.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was an epiphany for him. And I think that was the permission he needed to just go for it.
It sounds like he was a born healer.
Yes. Not that he didn't create his own injuries with his brothers, but he was ornery. I don't want to make him out to be an angel, though that's what we've been doing, but he was mischievous and, did things to irritate them and just for the sake of it, just to humor himself. But they did have pretty good relationships. I mean, I never saw them fight physically. It was always just mental gymnastics.
Guess what? Every sibling does to each other, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we're coming towards the end of the show. I've just got a few more questions left. The first one is, from both of you, what are your 5 top tips for someone who kind of wants to shine their inner light, but they don't really know where to start?
Go ahead, Kath.
Well, that's worthy of a whole hour right there. But, honestly, it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier with when you were going through grief and learning how, we're taught to just push everything kind of under the carpet. We're supposed to just, carry on. And I think that we have an entire heart full of, feelings and love and passions and information and we've lost touch with our heart because of just the way that we've, been, brought up, or we have a focus on fitting into this, box of having the job and finding the relationship and doing all the kind of things that we know somehow we have to do to make our lives work. But it's just, getting in touch with your heart, and there are so many ways to do that. You can write, you can go for a walk and allow your heart to just lead you where you're going. You can put your hands on your heart and breathe into it and feel yourself coming up and waking up and feeling and lighting up. So there's some really simple things that you can do, but the point is do them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And finding your passion, whether it's a hobby that you have that you love, that lights you up, throw yourself into that and find that place where you feel that bliss that you felt when you were a child more frequently than we do as adults, because like Kathy said, we learn to push things away, be pragmatic in the world, do the tough stuff. But finding what really lights you up is and then following it is the way to turn that light back on. I mean, I certainly had to find that after Ryder passed. I never thought I'd find my light again. And
wow.
Yeah.
And that's been for me, yeah. That's been like a revelation to watch it coming back on. Because I've only ever known Shelley to be an extremely bright light. And so watching that dim and go out for a while was just really tough. But she followed her heart. She followed, the things that mattered to her, she followed. She did them. She didn't care what other people thought. And they led her back to this glowing ember that's now on pretty much all the time.
Oh, that's beautiful. And what are you both most grateful for?
I'm grateful for the light my boys bring to my life. I'm grateful for the contact I still have with Ryder. That really sustains me. And I'm grateful for the magic in the world that has always been a part of my life, and the fact that it's still there.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
I'm grateful. Actually, I think about this quite a bit. I'm grateful to be me, to be built and designed the way that I was when I came in, to have, the hunger and the curiosity that I have about life, to have amazing people that are, resonate with me, to be able to connect with people like we're doing today. I mean, I really am grateful for this call that we've had.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, bless you both. I've really enjoyed this. It just, wow. Very powerful, both of you. And I really appreciate both what you're doing. And yeah, Ryder was definitely a special person. I can feel that. And there is so much that both of you are doing to help so many other people heal from grief. It isn't an easy subject to talk about, and it's not an easy subject to deal with as well. And I feel like both of you have really helped so many people to really just connect to their light and just be who they're supposed to be in this world.
Thank you.
Yes. It sounds easy, but it really takes some effort.
Yeah.
It's a simple enough concept, but like Kathy said, we're not raised to do that. So getting there is the battle.
Yeah. Well, thank you, ladies. And yeah, I just keep doing what you're both doing because you're amazing souls.
Well, thank you. You are as well. We wish you just nothing but the best, and thank you again.
Oh, bless you.
Yes, this is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Wow. What a powerful story, and what a powerful journey that Shelley and Kathy have gone through, and Shelley's whole family. It's not easy dealing with grief, and especially the grief of your own child. And I think what I took away from today is that life is too short. Just live life to the fullest. Don't care what other people think, and just be present in every moment, because that's all we have. Unfortunately, that's the end of the show. Before I leave, I want to leave you with this quote. Grief never ends, but it changes. It's a passage, not a place to stay. Grief is not a sign of weakness, nor lack of faith. It's the price of love. For more information about the show or how to trust your inner light, visit my new coaching program at gerdzhandel.com. And remember, stay happy, stay healthy, stay lit.